All right, Awesemo, here we go. The dulcet tones of the Sugar Plum Fairies. I believe, if I'm getting that correctly, always mixes me up with Hall of the Mountain King. Another good one. Joy, Ode to Joy. Also a good one. There's some good instrumentals out there. A lot of good stuff. I am joined by newcomer here for NFL Live Before Lock, T McB, Terry McBride. You can find him over on Twitter at... What is it? Digital B21?
Yep. Digital B21.
There we go. Look at that. We went a little bit closer to lock today because we have so much going on or we had so much other content coming in. We figured there wasn't a whole lot that we could tell you all differently. Plus we had the MMA show, we had the NBA show, and we're kicking it old school here. We're going on a Saturday night ride here. Let me get onto YouTube here. I forgot to do that, so I'm logging in under the Awesemo account, which reminds me, if you guys have not yet signed up for Awesemo, use the promo code Caruso to get 1 week all access NBA premium starting now, goes through the 29th. You get that first week, everything NBA. Best thing about that, you get full access to Slack. There's a lot of good things about it, but the full access to Slack is very helpful because then you can, say hi to all of your favorite friends, such as Jazzraz, Adam Scherer, whose DMs are probably not open. There is no mute function on Slack, but he claims he has muted me. But I know he's just ignoring me. That's okay. That's okay, Adam. All right, Terry, how are you feeling here? We have first of our Saturday games. We had 2 this week. We have 3 next week. We also have Christmas. So there's a game at 4:30 on Christmas. The 3 games on Saturday, and then we got a full slate Sunday. No Thursday night game because we're doing the Friday night game or Friday afternoon game. We've got 5 NBA games going off on Christmas. NBA starts the 22nd. That is on Tuesday. So again, use that promo code Caruso to get all access for one week or / through the 29th of December. So 1 week of preseason. If you sign up for it on the 29th, you're going to get a full 7 days. But use promo code Caruso and you get that for just $1. Well worth it there. And then please do hit that like button as we get going here. I did not get to our friends, the inactive lists here. I'm assuming Curtis Samuel is a full go. Otherwise, one of the many alerts I had set would have appeared for us. Someone named Trollcat asks me, have I heard of Devontae Adams on Twitter?
Oh, no, never heard.
Why, yes. Fresno State's own. My mom's alma mater. Fresno State University, go Bulldogs. Yeah, just throwing that out there. All right, well, let's kind of take a peek here at what we have in store for us, Terry. We'll hit all of the good stuff. We've hit a lot of it. We will talk about our sponsor, No House Advantage. But we've got that promo code Caruso, which is phenomenal. And then the free content of today, as well as tomorrow, is the NFL Top Stacks tool. So this is something that you guys definitely want to check out. I'm going to drop that in chat just in case Nightbot has not done that recently. But that is the sort of the equivalent of the baseball stacking tool. So it tells us what the percentage owned is going to be of the particular quarterbacks, is what it's based off of, how popular they are going to be, and then their likelihood of success of being the top scoring quarterback / their stack of the game. Should be no surprise that it's Patrick Mahomes. However, Mahomes pretty spendy. Plus we got Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, both very spendy as well. Makes it tough to get them both in a lineup. So we'll talk about that. We have 4 hours of content tomorrow starting at 9 a.m. You'll get Josh Engelman and Adam Scherer doing a little strategy. You'll get the deep dive with Laffy, Alex, and then Ben, and then you'll get the start sit questions show, and then live before lock, and then I'll be back again. I believe it was with Kyle Dvorak for live before lock Sunday night. So again, got you guys covered, and I believe there's one more NBA preseason slate. So let's jump in here. So it's going to be cold in Green Bay. Last I saw, I think it was going to be around 30 or so at game time. No other real issues. Does this concern you for the Curtis Samuel hamstring? We'll start there.
I mean, as much as a leg injury is going to concern me about a guy like that anyway, who's kind of a dynamic skill player, relies on his legs. We see him carry the ball every now and then for them out of the backfield. He's a guy who, relies on his speed to get open. So I could see it being an issue. I don't know necessarily that the cold is going to really make me that much more concerned about it. Like, it's not going to make me avoid him just because it's cold more than I would avoid him just because he's got a hamstring injury. That said, I do think he's in play. He was somebody I was kind of looking at, hoping that he would remain questionable coming up to lock so that we could get him maybe at a bit of an ownership discount. He is a guy that I like to work in when he's healthy. I think he's dynamic when they get him the ball, and he gets it a lot of different ways. So he's a guy I do like to put into lineups, and he ranks out fairly well for us, particularly in the flex side of things. So I'm glad he's playing, and I'm not going to really go away from him because of the weather.
All right, I've pulled up the inactives here. Nobody crucial. The whole Christian McCaffrey dance is annoying. I'm calling it the rule rumba because he's doubtful, and then out. But it screws up all your season-long teams because they take him off the out list. You can't do pickups with him in the IR. It's a pain in the ass. He's not going to play for the rest of the year. Shocker. I'm going to call that right now. It's what I said 3 weeks ago. There's no point. They're paying him a boatload of money. Their next loss for the Carolina Panthers eliminates them from the playoffs. And then the other issue is with all that money in them, we know running backs, unless you're named Emmitt Smith, you have a finite amount of carries in you. So why waste them on a lost season? So we'll have some Mike Davis chatter. We have Teddy Two Gloves in this one. So his hands won't be cold, I hope. Do you know the story behind Teddy Two Gloves?
I don't. Why does he?
So he's always worn two gloves, right. And that was something he started. I don't know if it was in high school, but certainly it was when he went to Louisville. I think he started, like after his freshman year, like 4 or 5 games into the season, right? So he all of a sudden he was in the mix there, and then he's always worn two. He did not for his pro day. He didn't wear either glove. I believe the technical term is a shitty performance. And since then, he said, you know what? Call me Teddy Two Gloves because I'm wearing them no matter what. Now, a lot of times quarterbacks don't wear one on their throwing hand, right? Because they want the feel of the ball or whatever, what have you. There were rumors within the scouts that, he must have small hands. He may not have a great grip on the ball. That's why, blah, blah, blah. Cool. It's like,
you want the tacky gloves.
Yeah, just wear the gloves and go from there. But that's the story.
Even just playing backyard football, I could never throw a ball with a glove on.
No,
it was always so weird and awkward. I don't understand how they do it.
No, but he has done that. So notable inactives here: left tackle Russell Okung, quarterback Will Grier, McCaffrey, as I mentioned, defensive back Natrell Jamerson, and a couple offensive linemen in Monteiro. Daly, and then defensive end Austin Larkin. On the Green Bay side, of course, Jordan Love, inactive, no surprise. Jay Sternberger is in the concussion protocol. Defenders Josh Jackson and Jonathan Garvin are both out. And then Simon Stepniak, the offensive lineman, is also out. We talked a little bit about the cold weather, so let's move on. Let's go by position here. What do you want to do with Teddy B? We have 2 quarterbacks in today's game. Of course, we have Aaron Rodgers in the midst of a phenomenal season here. Bridgewater is going against the second-ranked passing DVOA per Football Outsiders. In their last 26 regular season and playoff games, the Packers have allowed 3 300-yard performances. Bridgewater, 14 touchdowns, 8 interceptions through 12 starts. He does have 4 rushing touchdowns, 3 in his last 4 games. What do you want to do with Teddy?
Yeah, it's not a killer spot for him by any means, and he's not really, a guy who's racking up the fantasy points like you just pointed out, but he does do some things with his legs. He does throw the ball decently well, good efficiency on him. So he's a guy, I think he's in play significantly more in the flex spot on both sites. Just looking at our, flex at our showdown rankings, on DK, he's significantly knocked down for his captain ownership compared to his chances of being the top scorer on the site. It's like 3-1. So I don't know how much of him I would get to as the captain over on DK. But as far as the flex spot goes, I think he's firmly in play. You get a much better chance of him being a 2 to 6 finisher points wise as compared to his ownership, right around 35% in the util. So I think we can play Teddy there. I was getting a lot of him when I was crunching for DK, getting a fair amount of him when I was crunching for FanDuel. So definitely, I think he's in play, but he's not a guy that I'm excited to roster by any means. I think you can probably get away with building without him. He's a guy that, if you wanted to pick a somewhat heavily owned guy to leave out of a lineup, I could make an argument for that and still even maybe play one of the pass catchers and just hope that you can thread that needle. So that's around where I come down on Teddy. There's certainly, 3 or 4 guys I like better than him on FanDuel, and then on DK, just going by our rankings, there's a solid 6 guys above him. So he's a tough ask at that price on DK.
All right, we'll continue maneuvering through. Reminder, we are going live at 8:15 here with a lock. So let's talk running backs here. Mike Davis, been a DFS darling here for a while. Kind of fell off the shelf a little bit there, especially when, for a hot minute, it looked like Christian McCaffrey was going to come back there in week 9, crushed it, and then he's been out since. So over his last, 3 games, looking at Mike Davis, he's averaging 15 carries for just shy of 60 yards. In that stretch, he has 14 targets, which works out to just shy of 5 per game, 3.3 receptions, 27 receiving yards on average, 3 rushing touchdowns. Green Bay is in the bottom third of the league when it comes to rushing DVOA. They have allowed 13 different running backs to go for 65 combined yards this season. That's kind of the new metric. So they've allowed the 9th most fantasy points. However, we know that the running game is not what it once was. So when you look at those fantasy points per game, it's nothing compared to what it was 5 years ago. So, it's all perspective. So they are in the bottom third of the league for fantasy points against running backs. But that doesn't mean it's a gimme by any stretch. But Mike Davis should see a lot of touches today. Essentially, the only backup for the team is Rodney Smith at this point, in a potential Curtis Samuel usually gets a couple carries. Don't know what they'll do. It all depends on the hamstring. He was kind of a surprise sit or limited, I can't remember now, on Thursday for that practice, but nobody seemed overly concerned with it. So we'll have to see. But we could see a little bit of Rodney Smith. Where does Mike Davis come in for your rankings? Is this obviously Devontae's number 1? And we're paying a premium. Is it really a premium? We'll get to that. But where does Mike Davis fit in for you?
I like Davis. I think out of our options, particularly not necessarily loving Bridgewater, just kind of Teddy's a guy who's in play, but not somebody I'm excited about. That kind of naturally led me to Davis a little bit. Like you mentioned, he's going to get a ton of touches. He's a guy that, look, we've bounced around on him all year long. I think once people finally started to trust him, he started to disappoint everybody. We got back off him. He started producing again. So he's a guy I've gotten wrong a lot this year, but I'm happy to go back to him again. Just looking at our, rankings from the site on FanDuel, he's right around even up on his chance of being the top scorer as compared to his captain ownership, his MVP ownership over there. Same story with his 2 to 5 compared to his flex. So he's in play. He's very, borderline as far as, you're not gaining any tremendous advantage, but it makes a lot of sense to have him kind of a guy. There's not a lot of leverage baked into him. Same thing on DK. You're getting him right around even odds on being the top producer as being in the ownership in those spots. So he's a guy I'll get to. I'll have quite a bit of, probably going to be my most owned Carolina player. But again, you're not really getting a leg up on the field by doing that unless you're going way over the top on him, or unless you're choosing to leave him out completely. So he's kind of a decision point. I wouldn't be surprised if he would be a point where a lot of the slate swings on what he does tonight.
And that makes sense, especially coming in that 2-game slate. We'll talk about Aaron Jones. We'll talk about the lurking specter of Jamal Williams in here. But it looks like the one nice thing about Mike Davis, he's the only guy tonight that's not sharing the backfield in particular with anyone. Now, probably going to be rolling with a negative game script too. Fortunately, he's a decent pass catcher. We saw him have some moments with Seattle, wearing my Seahawks Super Bowl shirt. Still too soon. Why didn't they run the ball with Marshawn Lynch? I don't know. But That's okay. So he had some moments with Seattle. He was fine with Chicago, and I thought he was a steal when he ended up with Carolina. And then look at this year. He's been a completely serviceable back. I would say he's well above league average. I think his skill set, both in the running and receiving, he's not awesome at either, but he's kind of above average at both, which is very helpful. He would probably be a serviceable guy on 2/3 of the teams in the league right now. So I think he is a nice option when we get into all formats here. I think on DraftKings, he is worthy of captain consideration. I'm a little more tepid on FanDuel. If you think there's a negative game script, that those half-point PPR points don't add up quite as quickly, but you got to think he's going to have some red zone equity. And we've seen, running back or whomever goes down on the 1, 2, or 3. All of a sudden, coaches get conservative. It's really cold. He should get some red zone rushing attempts, if there are any, from that standpoint. All right, let's talk about. Oh, go ahead.
Before we move on, my one concern with that would be just Teddy running the ball, and we've seen him a couple of weeks.
The 4 touchdowns, yeah.
Right. So that would be the one thing that could maybe take that away from him. But I agree with everything you said there.
Let me get back to the notes here. For wide receivers, so DJ Moore was out last week, close contact for COVID. He's expected, or he is playing tonight, should not have any limitations whatsoever. He and Robbie Anderson have been absolutely amazing this season. Curtis Samuel, as we mentioned, dealing with a hamstring, but he should be good to go. That kind of makes us cross out Farrell Cooper and Brandon Zylstra. If you're ranking these guys, who knew it was going to be Robbie Anderson, who was the efficient deep ball guy for the Jets for so long? Who knew he was going to be Mr. Steady? It was DJ Moore that's going to turn into a deep threat efficient guy. And then we've got Curtis Samuel, a wide receiver and a running back's body going on there. This is not a bad set of receivers by any stretch.
No, yeah, I like the receivers. It's funny, I won't say I was bad mouthing Teddy, but I wasn't excited about Teddy, but I like the receivers a lot better. I kind of wish they had a better quarterback throwing them the ball. Out of these 3 guys, I would have little bits and pieces of all 3 of them. I would agree, probably just taking a look at Alex's rankings, we've got Robbie Anderson on top, but it's very close between him and DJ Moore, and then it's only Teddy between the 2 of them and Curtis Samuel. So we've really got them ranked pretty close together, particularly as you get into the flex spot. On DK, you're looking at reasonable chance DJ around 22% chance of being in the top in the 2 to 6, and Curtis Samuel in the 18% range, and they get a little higher than that with Robbie. So I really think that all of those guys are in play. It comes down to, what do you think is going to happen? What are you building with the rest, and what can you afford? So given the price discrepancy between the 3 of them, I think we're going to land on a decent amount of Curtis Samuel, just because I expect to be paying a lot for Devontae and Aaron Rodgers in a lot of lineups. So it just naturally is going to lead me to a receiver that I like, who is the least expensive out of those guys as I build. And then we'll see what we get to from there. But I would definitely have a wide swath of all 3, and I would definitely have one of them attached to Teddy in every Teddy lineup, I think.
All right. Now we're talking tight end here. Nothing exciting. No Greg Olsen, obviously. He's now with the Seahawks. We have Ian Thomas, who's, air quote, the lead tight end. He has 24 of the 34 targets that have gone to this position. Bridgewater never really has leaned on his tight ends for any stretch. Ian Thomas, relatively cheap, but I cannot get excited by someone that probably projects to see 5 targets at the very most, and 2.2 is the likely outcome.
Yeah, 5 is a ceiling game for him. A guy who's got 100 and change yards and 1 touchdown on the year is there's just not the volume there. So as a guy to mix and match, and maybe a dart throw, you're hoping for that touchdown upside. You're hoping to catch lightning in a bottle at 2%, 5% ownership, whatever we've got him at. Not a guy I'm going to be excited about it by any means. He's coming in just under 10% owned in the flex spot. You certainly don't want him at captain on DK. And then looking at him on FanDuel, right around 10% over there. So, he's just not a guy to get excited about at that ownership. Even if you get the touchdown out of him, he's not going to be that rare that it's going to be something that's going to set you apart from a ton of lineups where you don't have to hit it very often for him to pay off. But I don't know. Not something I'm excited about at all.
And then on to defense. While I'm doing that, think of this one. Season-long question for you in the playoffs against Nolan Kelly, Awesemo's editor-in-chief here. Should I go with Jared Goff at quarterback or Teddy Bridgewater? You know which league I'm talking about. You're in it as well.
Yeah,
the super flex dynasty league.
My team is so bad in that league.
All right. While you're thinking about that one, the Packers have allowed only one sack or more than one sack just twice this season. They've allowed 8 in their last 8 games. Rodgers has 4 interceptions on the year. They have not had any turnovers in the last 3 games. Carolina has just 19 sacks, which is bottom 5. Their 18 takeaways is about 1.5 per game. It's kind of middle of the pack. Nothing exciting to see here. On DK, you are getting a discount. You're paying a premium on the Packers defense. We'll talk about that. They're not in a really great spot here. But before we head on to talk about no house advantage, what do you think about that season-long question?
I think I would go Goff just because of,
that's what I have as well.
Yeah. If we switch the quarterbacks for the teams, I would still keep the same answer. It's not really about the receiver set. I like both sets of receivers. I just think Goff is the better arm out of the two. So that's the way I would go. Sadly,
I have Melvin Gordon on my bench. This is a very deep league. It's full PPR, but I had to go with Jeff Wilson because Nolan is such a 49ers fan. I wanted him to reach in and rip out his heart and show it to him. Oh, update. I beat Nolan last week. I'm playing Alex Baker this week.
Oh, going up against the boss man.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't have changed anything because I still think Jeff Wilson is an intriguing play, but we'll talk about that on Sunday. All right, so No House Advantage sponsor of the show. If you guys have not yet signed up, you can do so. Use the promo code Awesemo, and they will match you up to your first $20 in your initial deposit. Refer a friend. When they make their first cash deposit, you'll get another $5. What is No House Advantage? Well, it's player props, which is a lot of fun because we're not going against the house, hence the name, No House Advantage. We're going against other gamers. It's peer-to-peer side. So just like we do on DraftKings and FanDuel and Yahoo, etc., we're going against other gamers. So the nice part about that is that there is no house advantage. So how it works is depending on the contest, you end up going with 6 to 8 questions. You rank them with confidence points. And then if it's showdown, it's usually 5 or 6. If it's full slate, sometimes they'll get up as many as 8. They kind of mix and match with that. But we have projections here for you. They're static lines, meaning once they've been created, they don't change them for injury or weather or any other updates. So that also influences the outcome, but everybody knows what's going on there. So it also influences with a little bit of game theory. I'm dropping in our free projections here, and they break it out for us. So the one I want to ask you about, we're going to look at, where are we, Mr. No House Advantage? I want to see what Aaron Rodgers over-under is for passing yards. So let's see. Rodgers over-under for passing yards on No House Advantage, 297.5. The Awesemo projections have him at 268. The median Awesemo projection, so running thousands of simulations and then choosing what is right in the middle, is 254. So we're saying there's a 14% advantage if we take the under. It's 297. Nobody wants to go against the under. It's cold there in Green Bay. What do you want to do with Aaron Rodgers at 297.5? Are you going over or are you going under for no house advantage?
I think I would trust the boss on that one and ride that under. In a cold weather game, like you said, maybe get to they start handing the ball off a little bit more. He doesn't throw quite as much. Just looking on Odd Shopper across all the various sites, it looks like it's come down to 295.5, so down by 2 yards, 293.5 at one of the books. So if you check out Odd Shopper, you can shop that around and find the best spot to place that bet if you like it. There's a couple different lines out there, so might be worth checking out. But I think I would ride with the boss and take the under on that.
And this is one way you can kind of utilize the player props in your advantage, both by using the Awesemo Odd Shopper. If you're in a state that allows sports betting, you can go place these bets, as particularly FanDuel and DraftKings and a few others that we have, Betfair and William Hill and Sugar House, et cetera. But you can it'll tell you where the odds are as they change. So sometimes The lines may stay the same, but the amount you pay to win, or vice versa, the vig, if you will, changes. But the line doesn't, depending on what happens. And we see this a lot on games, especially when the games get right around those key numbers of 3, 4, 7, et cetera. But you could shop the best odds and find out what you want. And this is a way you can hedge some of your DFS lineup. So if you go super duper heavy on Aaron Rodgers and say, you know what, I got a couple $100 riding on him. Why don't I put 30 or $40 on the under for this passing yard? And it's a little insurance for you. It's not going to, make you whole or get you healthy, but it's going to curb some of that downside risk, especially with a big number like 297, when we know they have two perfectly healthy running backs, and they do institutionally like to run the ball there in Green Bay, despite having a passel of Hall of Fame caliber quarterbacks. So Rodgers leading the league with 39 touchdowns this year, Terry. As I mentioned before, only 4 interceptions. No quarterback within 159 pass attempts has suffered fewer interceptions. I believe it was Drew Brees that was close, and I think the number was 150 or 151. So I cherry picked that 149. Point is, that's like 5 games worth of passes, 4 games in today's NFL. That's quite a bit from there. So he could go another 4 games before he'd throw another interception compared to any of the other quarterbacks close to him. That's just, it's out of control at this point. Now, the Panthers have allowed at least 3 touchdowns, rushing or receiving, to opposing quarterbacks in 4 of their last 5 games. Most of those have been receiving. A couple guys had rushing touchdowns. Rodgers is top 5 in nearly every projection system. However, he's my number 2 play, because I think if he gets there, it's because of Davante Adams. And Davante Adams should outscore him. 6 points for touchdowns, full or half point PPR, not getting any points for completions. Most sites you get 1 point for, or a quarter of a point for every 25 yards passing, et cetera. So what do we want to do with Rodgers? Because he's not the most expensive player on the slate. His raw projection is amazing, but can he get there? They get up big, Teddy Two Gloves falls apart a little bit. All of a sudden they're running the ball. We could have earmarked a ton of our salary cap to Aaron Rodgers, and he may disappoint. How do you want to approach this?
Yeah, that's the thing. It kind of becomes a decision about, we talk about it a lot. What do you think the story of the game is going to be? What's the game script going to be like? And if you think that the game goes that way, it's not necessarily the odds on that it's going to go that route, where they're going to be pounding the ball on the ground and it's going to be a low scoring game where they get out ahead and then just, burn the clock and run the ball a bunch of times. It might not go that route, but if you think it is, then it's worth having that conversation about, do we try and get away from Davante and Aaron Rodgers, because there is so much salary tied up in the two of them that maybe some of these other players, maybe an Aaron Jones, maybe a Jamal Williams, start to make a little bit more sense. That said, they're by far our top 2 guys in terms of raw projection, in terms of being the probability of being the top scorer, in terms of being probability of being in the top 2 to 6 scorers. I mean, it's just a monumental difference between them and everybody else. So you're really just making that decision. Do I believe in the projection? Do I believe in the numbers and that these guys are going to produce what we expect? Or am I going to try and play that game and guess who else is going to get that action and get that? And really, that's going to be the entire story of tonight's game. You're either going with those 2 or you're not. And that's really your big decision point tonight.
All right, I just dropped 10 $1 head-to-heads there in DraftKings. Jump on in, grab those if you would like. Make fun of me on Twitter. Make fun of me in the premium Slack. Wait, you're not a member of Awesemo? You can't get to me in the premium Slack? Well, use the promo code Awesemo for just $1. Get access to all NBA, including preseason content, through December 29th. Just $1. Promo code Caruso. That includes all access to all Slack. All right. I am about to have hiccups, so I'm going to kick you off with the next question. I said, with a big gulp of air, maybe that changed. What is your hiccup cure? Everybody's got a one-home cure.
Oh, you got to stand on your head, spin around 3 times. If you need somebody there, rotate you by your feet, you do that, clear right up.
That seems
you
a
do
little
that on
difficult.
camera, actually. We can win.
My solution, and you guys can try this on anybody, and it will work guaranteed the first time. Won't work after that. But you take a paper napkin or a paper towel, take off a sheet, and set it on the person's head, and you tell them, I've got this cure. It's going to work. and you make this elaborate thing and you put it on their head, and they're trying to figure out what you're doing. So one, they hold their breath, and then they kind of tense up but relax at the same time. So it changes the spasm in the diaphragm muscles. So it works. So usually it only works once. So my wife gets hiccups a lot. So I try to trick her in different ways with varying degrees of success. Someone told me the one I'd never heard and not tried yet, a spoonful of peanut butter.
Really?
Yeah. So my wife is into the drinking the water upside, and I'm like, no, can we please not do that? Because one, it doesn't work for you. And two, it's out of control. So in any event, try the napkin on the head. The first time I did it, she's like, oh my God, this is me. You tell them it's magic. It's an old Ethiopian way of doing this. Because my friend who told me about it, she was Ethiopian. She's like, oh, I've got a trick for this. So we made it a big thing. But anyway, let's get back here. Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams. Aaron Jones, not dominating from a touchdown perspective from time to time, ripping our heart out and showing it to us while it's still beating when we don't play him. What are we going to do here? I kind of feel like Jamal Williams is the leverage play, but when you go look at his numbers, they're not that great either. This is a testament to how much Green Bay is willing to pass. How are you approaching this duo? I am okay playing them just because I know this will be a one question. I'm fine playing them in the same entry. I have gone and said, if one's on the lineup, decrease the projection by the other by 30%. And my randomness could get us there. It's not saying no, but it's not likely that it's going to happen. I've kind of gone away from I don't want it to happen on these short slates because we've seen so many oddities with the increased scoring across the league. Some of our old tried and true strategies of double stacking with the run back, got to have the quarterback, got to have this. There's a lot of scoring out there. If it's an expensive quarterback, maybe the other guys get there without the quarterback, and then you can get a cheap guy that scores as much as that expensive quarterback, but his guys get there. So it's a mix and match thing. So this is a whole new strategy. We'll talk about that 9 a.m. tomorrow, kicking off for 4 hours leading up to NFL lock. But back to the first question at hand. What are you doing with these running backs? Because they're well down the pecking order for me.
Yeah, they're a little ways down there just because we want so much of that Green Bay passing game. I think that's going to be, I talked about how you're making your decision there for this offense, really. So if you decide to go away from Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams, and to a lesser degree your Lazards of the world, then yeah, you can play these running backs. You can get to an Aaron Jones. He's a guy I've played all year long. You mentioned it. When I've had him in tremendous volume, he's disappointed. When I've gotten to him not enough, he's crushed and he's ripped my heart out. So I expect to have him completely wrong again today. But I'd be comfortable as well playing them. I agree with wanting to limit it, but I would be comfortable putting them both in the same entry as well. I think they are unique enough to one another that they could both get there to a degree where it's enough of a score for you to get it in. Williams is cheap enough and he gets enough volume in the passing game. They give him the ball enough touches that I think he could pay that off for you. So I don't mind it. My preference out of the two, I think, of course, would be Jones, just based on our raw projection where we've got him as far as his probability of being the top play. Just looking here, he's our third ranked when you sort by probability of being the top overall player on DK, third ranked as well on FanDuel. So he's a guy that, if we're picking somebody else to score a touchdown on Green Bay, he's probably our most likely candidate outside of the passing combo between Rodgers and Adams. So you've got to go to him a little bit. He's got a bigger probability of being the top scorer than he does captain ownership. So I don't mind it on DK. I just think there's so much that's going to be likelihood going to Davante and coming from Aaron Rodgers over there that it's tough to get away from that.
All right, chat a little fired up. Don't worry, we got 11 minutes. We'll get you there. There was the running backs. Now we're going to talk about the wide receivers. Davante Adams is a god. Yep. Now, what do we do with the other two guys? Because it's MVS and it's Lazard. MVS, we feel like he is that big play threat. He's going to get the touchdowns. He only has like 4 or 5 touchdowns on the entire season. And I think, what does he have? Like 1 in his last 4 or 5 games. It's been a while since he got one. It just feels like it because he's always on these primetime slates, and that's when he seems to be scoring them. I prefer Lazard in this one. I don't hate, and we'll go into Robert Tonyan, and then also Mercedes Lewis, who's super duper cheap here, and the other tight end is out in the concussion protocol. What do you want to do with the full pass catching suite here for Green Bay?
So I think I agree with you, and I'm not entirely sure why it is, but I've just been kind of leaning his direction all year long with Allen Lazard over MVS. MVS he's got 5 on the year, tremendous ADOT, 17.5 yard average depth of target. So, I mean, he's the guy who's getting those deep balls. He's the guy who's going to have that big breakout opportunity if they go that route. But it's going to have to come at the expense of Aaron Rodgers decided not to throw it to Devontae on that play. So I think that might be eating into it a little bit. And I like the way they get Lazard the ball. I agree that I think there's a little bit of opportunity as well with the tight ends with Tanyan. And it just feels like one of those spots where a Mercedes Lewis vulture touchdown is just sitting there staring us in the face. No real, analytical basis for that, but it just feels that way. So when he's super cheap and you've got that option, he could see that red zone target and catch that pass. It's a total dart throw of a play. If you throw it in there, you're looking to save money. You're looking to catch that very low owned touchdown. And I mean, it's not like they're going to throw him the ball 10 times. He's going to have to catch one ball for a touchdown to pay it off. That's basically the opportunity.
All right. Equanimous St. Brown is going to get 1.5 targets today.
Is also on the team. Yes.
Yes. I am putting him in my main lineup. If you are playing me in cash, I will be playing Equanimous St. Brown because he's letting me get literally every other player that I want. Look at that. That was a fast way to get through. Again, Jay Sternberger out with the concussion. Robert Tonyan has 5 targets in each of his last 4 games, 9 receiving touchdowns, only behind Adams. We are paying Travis Kelce Jr. prices for Robert Tonyan Jr. on FanDuel at 10,500, DraftKings 6,400, a little more palatable. He's going to need to get that 10th touchdown for us to be happy. The Green Bay defense, they're averaging 2.7 sacks per game. It's top 3rd in the league. Carolina has done a solid job protecting the quarterback, allowing just 2 sacks per game, and they're averaging just 1 turnover per contest. If I set that over under of combined sacks plus turnovers at 3.5 for the Green Bay Packers, you're going to go over or under?
What was the number? Sorry.
3.5 combined turnovers and sacks for the Green Bay defense.
I would go over. I think they might get there on sacks.
Okay. And a lot of times when this happens, we've seen it countless times late in the game, teams down. Like we've even seen it happen to Tom Brady this year. Sacks on 2 out of the 3 plays or back-to-back plays when they shouldn't, just because they're holding the ball, waiting for a receiver to get down there. And it's just like, those are kind of the sacks. We're like, wait, how did those happen? You get nothing through 3 quarters. It's like the old fade Derrick Henry. Yes, I'm there. And then there's the 4th quarter and the inevitable overtime that get you. But Derrick Henry's on tomorrow's slate. Let's see here. Who is your number 1 captain? We'll answer a few questions here. We got 7 minutes to lock. I'm going to put some percentages in here. I've got my rules made, and I'm going to hit crunch and export my lineups.
I think Devontae makes the most sense. It's an obvious answer. It's an easy answer. He's super expensive, but he's also doubling up your chances of being the top point producer as compared to his ownership at the captain spot on DK. So it's kind of an easy one. If you don't want to go that route, I could see playing an Aaron Jones there. Like we were saying before, you're talking about the game script. You're probably going to want to get away from that Green Bay passing game then. Maybe look at play Aaron Jones in the captain and then throw like a Tanyan in there to get away from Devontae on the passing side of things. Maybe even play the Packers defense with that one to really ride that game script of they're going to get out in front and then they're going to ride the running game and the defense. I could see that potentially being a good build. I'm leaning more into the Packers side of this one. I think that's fairly obvious. My Teddy exposures, like I mentioned, in captain would be pretty limited. I don't really love the looks of him. I would have some Mike Davis there. And I don't necessarily hate, just looking at our top scorer versus captain ownership for DK. If you wanted to look for another Carolina player, I don't hate Robbie Anderson. He's about level up as far as those 2 numbers go.
How do you feel about Rodney Smith? He is making a ton of my lineups on my first crunch here.
He's super cheap.
I'm playing only on DK, and I want as much Devontae Adams as physically possible.
I mean, how many touches do we think he's going to see? That would be my big concern.
6.5. No, 5.5.
Yeah, what are we hoping for? What does he need to do to pay that off? It's just
8.5. I don't think he's going to get there. But what do the other guys do? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's a building block that allows you to put some other things into your lineup, like you're getting at there. I maybe would prefer a Thomas, I don't know, just based on the idea that he'd be lower. Oh, no, he's not even lower on than it's a lower. Yeah, scratch that. I don't like Thomas. Yeah, there's not really a good alternate in that range. So unless you're going way down to one of these guys who's not going to see the field.
All right, so we've got I crunched 50. I have 2% of the Packers defense and nothing else. 34% of each kicker. I'm fine with that. Yes, it's cold, but there's no wind. I'm hoping they're fine from 40 yards and in. I have no Robert Tonyan. I will manually add him to a couple lineups here. It's why I only crunched 50. I got 20% Ian Thomas. That hits my cap. I have 2% Mercedes Lewis, Devontae Adams in flex 52, Robbie Anderson 52, DJ Moore 28. I'm going to boost that a little bit. I'm fine with the Q tag on Curtis Samuel. I only have 18%. That's right at the field. I don't have Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I'm going to boost that one. I only have 8% Aaron Jones. There's my terrifying moment. 30% Jamal Williams. Aaron Jones is priced like he is the only running back, and we know that is not the case. Who terrifies you the most of not having enough of?
It would probably be Jones. Just looking at how this crunch is coming up, he's the guy who I could see putting up a score that would burn us the most. Let's put it that way. Out of anybody who's gonna break out, like I said before, he's the guy who's most likely to get that touchdown or those 2 or 3 touchdowns if Devontae's not getting him. So he'd be the guy that I would think would burn us. I agree with you there.
All right, I just gave myself 5 Robert Tonyan lineups. Let's see, jamming in PJ Walker, captain. That's a little bit crazy.
You said you were getting a fair swath of the kickers, right?
Yes.
I was getting both kickers a good amount.
35% of both. I am going to export this because I'm running out of time.
Yeah, I was in that last crunch. I was across 300 lineups that I crunched out. It was on for DK. It was right about 40% Sly and 38 Crosby. So it was definitely coming up with a good amount of both of those guys. I'm not sure how much of that would make my actual entries that went in, but they were definitely coming up for me. I think they both came up in our DK Optimal as well.
I've got a lot of DJ Moore. That's DJ Moore and Mike Davis are going to be my top 2 Carolina Panthers. I have Devontae Adams in almost 80% of my lineups, 30% MVP. It's ride or die time there. So we will see how that plays out.
Yeah, if we're going to pick a guy to do that with, that's certainly the guy for this game.
Yeah, it will be the pucker factor will be high, as the kids say. But that is why we do this. Speaking of doing this, oops, that's not how you set the RAND formula. We do 4 hours starting tomorrow at 9:00 a.m. for NFL. We are in week 15 here. We have just a couple weeks left and then 2 glorious weeks of playoffs, but we also get 3 Saturday games next week. We get 1 at 4:30 on Christmas on Friday. And then we, of course, have the Christmas NBA action to keep us happy. 5 games. We have milli makers across the board, literally 6 in the next 8 days. Which is just wild. My lineups are uploaded. I'm happy. There we go.
A lot of cash on the table over this next week or so.
This is my multiple people. This is my favorite part of the show. EMac scrambling to get his lineups in. Well, today we had preseason NBA. I had MMA. I had the early slate. I was screwing around writing the article, which I'll post shortly for. All right, well, it'll go live at 1 p.m. tomorrow for tomorrow night's Sunday night football between the Giants and Cleveland Browns. We'll, of course, have live before lock for that. After this, I'm going to turn around and start writing the Monday night game. I can't even remember who's playing in that one. So yeah, it was a little bit of a scramble. I'd done pretty good, and fortunately, I had set up all my rules and everything beforehand. I just hadn't hit crunch. yet, but it is always a little bit nerve-wracking and never any fun. When I was on the show with Alex, I made sure I had everything lined up, and then because he's playing hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'm playing a couple $100. Didn't want him, if things went sideways, I wanted to be able to take over and talk and all of that. But then that was the Des Bryant COVID test game, which was like, oh no, what do we do now? So, just getting us ready for NBA. So reminder, that starts Tuesday. You can reach out and touch that right now. We get 2 games on Tuesday. Most of the league plays on Wednesday, nada on Thursday. And then, of course, the glorious Christmas slate. Millie Makers, we've got everything. Everybody's bringing out their Christmas Day best. It's going to be a lot of fun. I already had dinner tonight, Terry. Air fryer. If you've heard of these air fryers, my wife got one of these. So we had chicken wings that she made. Very good, actually. Not spicy.
Authentically fried or liquid fried, I guess.
Oh yeah, it's like there's no grease, which is the very cool thing. And so the bacon in it's actually more flavorful, and so it's kind of fun doing these things. But I already had dinner, so no pizza for me. Although I may have a midnight snack. I did buy some ice cream when I went to the grocery store today, so I'm thinking there could be some second half ice cream here for this game. What do you got? No pizza for me. What do you got for dinner tonight? Anything exciting?
You know what? You might have just sold me on ordering a pie, because I haven't eaten anything yet. And Saturday night, the guy at whoever runs Carmine's Pizzeria in Jersey City, if you're out there, whoever makes your pies on Saturday and Sunday as compared to the rest of the week, that's the guy to have make the pies all week long. Or the gal. I don't want to be judgmental about that, but yeah, that's the right day to order over there. So I might do that.
Excellent.
And then I got to work on my groups article.
Yes, because I got to go make the group. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Hit that like button on the way out. We do appreciate it, and we will see you tomorrow morning. We are just 13 hours away. With that, gamers, good luck.